What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's favorite films of 2025, a look back at 2025 and a top 10 list. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 2025 turned out to be a really good year for movies, at least in my book. I think there are some really incredible movies that came out this year, really potent movies, some movies that would be looked back upon as some of the best of 2025 as well as the decade. Now, when it comes to this list, this is my personal favorite movies of the year, my top 10, I guess you could say. It's a collection of movies that was really difficult to break down to a top 10 list, to be fairly honest, so I will have 5 honorable mentions. But this is a list that I feel really set apart 2025 as a really well put together year. So be aware, I may have said in some of my reviews that this will be my top 10, but things change as they do, so I got to stop saying that. But first, we're going to go into 5 films that I feel are just right outside the bubble of my top 10. Okay, so F1 was in my top 10 for the longest time. I think as of this point in Letterboxd, it's still in my top 10, so I got to fix that. F1 is one of the best action movies of the year, to be fairly honest. I think it's creative. I think it's enjoyable. It doesn't have the greatest story in the world. It's very predictable. It feels very much like Joseph Kosinski's Top 10, or his Top Gun, I should say. But it's a movie with a lot of style, a lot of substance. It has a great payoff, and I think it has some of the best action and best set pieces of the year, to be fairly honest. I think it's a very potent movie. The reason it's not in the top 10 because it's a very difficult year. So that is one honorable mention. Another one, of course, is The Long Walk, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I feel was really, I actually read the novel for the first time this year, so I feel that it doesn't hit the highs of the novel, but I think is very good at capturing the dystopian feel of what happens when you are in like a Hunger Games scenario or a Battle Royale scenario where you're put in this predicament where you have no chance of living and no chance of success. It feels very much of this type of this world. I think David Johansen should get an Oscar nomination, but he won't. So that's Long Walk. That is an honorable mention. My third honorable mention is Nouvelle Vague. This, of course, is Richard Linklater's love letter to Jean-Luc Godard in his film Breathless. I think this is one of Richard Linklater's best films. I think it's very creative. It wasn't my top 10, but just barely missed it because of the other films that were in this list. Definitely watch it. Once again, it is about the kind of guerrilla style nature of filming Breathless and just how basically important Jean-Luc Godard is in the world of filmmaking. So that's one honorable mention. Another one is, of course, In Your Dreams, which is a Netflix animated film. Once again, would have been my top 10 if it weren't for this crazy year. This is one of the most beautiful things that Netflix has ever done when it comes to its animated realms. I think it's very creative. I think it's very fun. I think it has great protagonists. I think it has a great story. It is a little predictable, but I think it does the justice of an animated film. So that is another one. But just one more honorable mention, that is this thing On. I know this didn't get a lot of great reviews from, because it's directed by Bradley Cooper, but I was really taken aback by, Will Arnett and, of course, Laura Dern's performances. I think this is a really fun, really good, heart-meaning look into what it is to find something that you find passion in, find love in, and kind of cathartic nature of, you're dealing with a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of downtrodden stuff. And it's just a very uplifting movie. Bradley Cooper is phenomenal as a director in this movie, and he's also phenomenal as an actor in this movie, probably the best performance. So I think it's, it's not the best movie of the year, but I think it's one of my favorite movies of the year, to be fairly honest. So Is This Thing On is the last honorable mention, and that'll lead into the top 10. Once again, this is my honest opinion. This is how I feel, and some of these films you may never have heard of, some you may have, but number 10 is So once again, sometimes it takes 2 watches to really click with the movie. And the first time I saw The Plague, which of course was at Miami Gems Film Festival, I wasn't on board with it. I was probably really tired, like I said in my review. But it was a movie that didn't hit me as hard. And when I watched it the second time, when I was sent a screener, which I always appreciate, this movie is me as a young adult. Or a young kid. This is a movie where it's about a young kid who struggles to fit in with a group of individuals at a water polo camp. It's a kid who tries to befriend the awkward kid who is the one who says has the plague from the other kids. It is as truthful as a film about kids as you can get. It is a hard film to watch because of how violent it gets, how disturbing it gets, but I think the main kids in this movie, especially the two main actors, the one that is the popular kid and the main kid, are fantastic. And I think it's one of the best debuts of a director that I've seen in quite a while. I think I really do. So I think The Plague is one of the best films to come out this year. One of my favorite films to come out this year. Once again, if you don't click with it at first, really try to watch it a second time because it'll click with you, especially if you've gone through the trials and tribulations as a kid like this kid does, which I have. And I think that's why it hit me and why it's so potent for me. So at number 10 is The Plague. And at number 9, we have... So Jay Kelly, whether you like this movie or not, I think is a great love letter to not only the idea of filmmaking and the idea of regrets, but is a great love letter to George Clooney, who you may feel like is a little self-absorbed in this movie. But I think looking back on the idea of regrets, the idea of your past and what it took to get where you're at, become something more, to have that missing piece, especially with him and his kids, to look back on just your life when you're older. I think it hits hard. I think Noah Baumbach does a really nice job of just creating a really interesting movie that has great performances from, of course, George Clooney and Billy Crudup, but especially, of course, Adam Sandler and Laura Dern. It's a movie where it's very difficult to watch because you look back and you realize that you've done something really successful, but have you? I mean, is the most successful thing you've done as an actor? Or is it the fact that you were never there for your kids? And we've seen this a lot of times with George Clooney's movies, especially with stuff like Up in the Air. And once again, I think this is a really powerful example of just looking back on your life. And I think Noah Baumbach and I think Emily Mortimer do a really nice job with this movie. And I think it's really interesting. And that is Jay Kelly, which is my number 9 movie of the year. So with that said, number 8 is... So once again, Rian Johnson has proven to me that he is one of the most talented filmmakers on the market. I think, I saw Wake Up Dead Man way back in early November, before this movie even had a chance to come out. Had to think about this movie. I think it's actually the second in the series when it comes to the creative nature of the Knives Out franchise. And I think it's the most mature, the darkest. And I think it's a movie that really goes beyond the idea of a Benoit Blanc trying to solve the mystery. It is about how religion shapes us, how people shape us, and the idea that sometimes things can't be solved easily. And I think what this movie does is a take on that. I think everybody's great in this movie, especially Josh O'Connor and Glenn Close, and everybody else for the most part are great in this movie. And once again, this is a great franchise. This is Rian Johnson's, golden goose and his crowning achievements when it comes to his filmmaking. And Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Tale is one of the best movies I've seen this year. One of my favorite movies of this year. So definitely check it out. It is on Netflix now, and I definitely highly recommend it. So with that said, my number 7 is... So my number 7 is a movie that is my last official movie I saw for this year as review, at least on Letterboxd. And of course, It Was Just an Accident. This is, of course, from Jafar Panahi. This is a movie about a bunch of people who were convicted and put in jail, who... One of them actually kidnaps the guy he believes that is the person that did this. And it's more of a story that goes beyond the fact that it's about a thriller about kidnapping an individual that puts you in jail. It's a story about the idea of authoritarianism and the idea of people being tried under really chaotic regimes, really sadistic regimes. And I give a lot of credit to Panahi for taking the realm or taking the reins of this, because he could get himself in a lot of trouble. He could be killed for this movie. And it's just a really powerful movie. It's actually deeply comedic, to be fairly honest. It has some really funny moments. It is really unsettling, just on the simple fact that they have this guy and there's a whole bunch of people who have been wrongfully convicted and wrongfully accused by this one person who has one leg. And the payoff is interesting. It's not the best payoff of a movie because it does end dramatic. It does end quickly. But I think the message is in here. I think what Panahi is doing, I think what the actors are doing, I think is really powerful work. So it's definitely hard to watch. It definitely is very darkly comedic, but I think it is one of the best movies I've seen this year. One of my favorite movies of the year. So it is highly recommended. I think it's in theaters, or it will be on VOD or whatever soon. But if you get a chance to watch this, is France's submission for Best Foreign Language Film. So definitely check it out. So number 7 is It Was Just an Accident, and that leads into number 6, which is the number 6 is probably the most surprising movie of this year, and that of course is Pixar's Elio, because the trailers looked terrible, because it looked kind of bland and very much in the realm of like a Lightyear movie. What I didn't expect is to have this in my top 5 like best Pixar movies of all time. This movie is an incredible achievement. I think it is a surprising film. I think it's a very heartwarming, very truthful film about acceptance, about who we are in this place in the world. I think it has a great villain. I think it has a great supporting cast, has great voice acting, it has great animation. Yeah, I think the character of Ilio, who has to learn these lessons, it's a really fantastic look into that. I think it's the best of what Pixar can do. And I think, like, Turning Red or Toy Story or Bug's Life, I think when these movies hit and when they are perfect, I think that's just what it does the best. And I think when they go into original material, and when the original material hits like Coco and stuff like that, and Up and Wall-E, I think it really can set a standard for what is great in the world. And it's too bad this movie didn't make any money, because I think it's an incredible achievement of animation film or filmmaking and stuff like that. So Ilio's number 6, and we're halfway through. So at number 5 we have So I was surprised that a lot more people were very lukewarm on this movie, but Marty Supreme is, I think, a totemic achievement for filmography, or filmmaking, I should say, not filmography. I think this is Timothée Chalamet's Oscar to lose, even though I think Ethan Hawke will probably get it for Blue Moon. I think it's a wonderfully chaotic performance, a very dark, very, you root for the guy, root against the guy because he's a very unlikable character, but I think this is Timothée Chalamet's best performance he's ever done. I think this will be a movie that is looked upon as like why Timothée Chalamet is one of the great actors working today. And then you have Gwyneth Paltrow in this movie, and you have just a bunch of great supporting cast. I think it's a movie that is probably a little longer than it needs to be, but I think overall it's just one of those movies that really stuck with me after I watched it, and I love this movie. So Marty Supreme is fantastic. It's not even really about ping pong, even though ping pong's in there. It's about one man's drive to ruin everyone else's life so he can have a life as a ping pong player. So Marty Supreme, directed by Josh Safdie, one of my favorite movies of the year. So that is at number 5. Number 4 is So leave it to Brian Fuller to do a film that's creative and weird and R-rated and have it be a fantasy film. Dust Bunny is one of the most creative films I've seen this year. Mads Mikkelsen is fantastic, but it really is Sophie Sloane's performance that really sells this movie as the little girl who hires a hitman to take down the monster under the bed. It has a great supporting cast of Sigourney Weaver and, of course, David Dastmalchian and Sheila Adam. This is a movie that is creative in nature, is beautiful to look at, is the main creature is a dust bunny. I mean, I don't want to spoil it too much, but this is like one of my favorite fantasy films I've seen in quite a while. It's brutally violent, but it's also honestly just one of the funnest movies I've seen this year, and I feel that is highly recommended. Some people didn't like it, which is perfectly fine because it is a weird movie, but for Brian Fuller, with what he's able and capable of doing, I think this is right up his alley. It has some of the most visually astonishing, visually arresting things I've seen this year. So at number 4 is Dust Bunny, and at number 3 we have So Chloe Zhao, I think, was actually number 3 on my list for Nomadland, believe it or not. So this is kind of a interesting concept. Hamnet can be seen as manipulative when it comes to its storytelling. I don't agree. I think this movie is very powerful. I think Jesse Buckley and Paul Mescal give some of their best performances ever created. I think the young kid who is Noah Jupe's brother is fantastic. I think the kids are fantastic. I think this movie is gorgeous to look look at it. I think it's a really powerful story about loss. I think the ending is a triumph. I think it is a well put together, once again, it is manipulative when it comes to it, but all movies are manipulative because that's what they're aiming to be when it comes to like the looks and feels of of who you are and stuff like that. And just the story of loss, just the story of losing someone, and the powerful nature of, Paul Mescal plays William Shakespeare. And like I said, that idea of creating Hamlet based off a kid who passed away. I really love this movie. It really hit me hard. I think Chloe Zhao is one of the most talented filmmakers working today. And I think this is one of the best movies of the year. So Hamlet is one of my favorite movies of the year, which leads into number 2, which is... So this might be controversial. I don't care. It was on Hulu. I wish I got a theatrical release. If we looked at best theatrical releases of the year, this would not be on there, but my favorite movies of the year, this is on there. That, of course, is Predator, Killer of Killers. This is directed by Dan Trachtenberg, his one of 2 films of the year that is based on Predator. And this is a creative, it's animated. It goes places. It adds new lore to the Predator franchise. We go, of course, to the planet of the Predators, the Yukja. We learned 3 different stories about how these warriors kill predators and are captured. And I think it just is a great action movie. It's a great set piece movie. It's a great story about survival and about the warrior spirit and about, who is the best of the best of the best, sir, that type of movie. And Dan Trachtenberg, once again, has proven this franchise has life in it. And even Badlands, which I didn't put in my top 10 of the year, is still a fantastic movie. It's still a fun movie. But I just think this movie is just... It's a 5 out of, I think it's like a 4.5, but I think it's a 5 out of 5 to me personally, just because of how good it is. And once again, Hulu, like with Prey, should have put this on, of course, in the theaters, and I think it would have done very well. So Predator, Killer of Killers is one of my favorite movies of the year. It's not number 1, but it is one of those movies that I highly recommend, especially if you want good action, good set pieces, good, R-rated violence. That's what this movie does. So it's great. It's my number 2, and that leads into what is surprisingly my number 1 movie of the year. Okay, so I was not expecting this to be my favorite movie of this year. I honestly didn't know much about this film until I heard about it at I think the Miami Gems Film Festival. I didn't even know Sean Baker was working on another film, but this one is directed by his partner who's worked on his films is Shi Ching Su. Has directed this little film called Left-Handed Girl, which was shot on an iPhone and was it's a film about people who move to Taipei, back to Taipei, and they run this little stand. And it's a film that has a deeper message about family and about, trying to make it in a world that is very unapologetic and trying to, if you're the, black sheep of the family, and how raising a kid who is very rebellious and has another kid who is very susceptible to ideas and believes that her left hand by her grandfather is the devil, and she starts stealing stuff. And I think it's a very powerful, potent message. Nina Yi, who plays the young girl, is great. Janelle Tsai and Xu Ma are fantastic. I think it's a movie that really has a great message. Tang Hua Wong, who plays Johnny, is also great. I think this movie is beautiful to watch. Once again, shot all on an iPhone. I think the ending of this movie is really powerful and quite surprising. And I think this movie hit me the hardest because I was not expecting this movie at all. I was not expecting anything out of this movie. And I watched it and it completely blew me away. And I gave this movie 5 stars because I think this is an incredible achievement of filmmaking. And it, like a lot of Sean Baker's movies, and he did edit this and co-wrote it, I think dealing with people who are, of like my ilk, who are, the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to like working class individuals and people who have made mistakes and who are trying to atone for those mistakes, and people that kind of are not learning their lessons, and this life and the structure and the idealisms of that are, very international, worldwide, and everybody can feel that. And even though this movie is about individuals from, in Taipei and stuff like that, and just what it is, it's a really powerful movie. Is my favorite movie of this year, and no other movie has even come close to being my favorite movie of the year after this one came out. And yeah, I was really taken aback by how much I love this movie. So I highly recommend it. It's difficult to watch sometimes because of the messages it plays out, but I think it should be watched by everyone, and I think it's a great film. So my number one favorite film, my number one of the movie of the year, is Left-Handed Girl. It's actually on Netflix, so definitely watch it there. So with that said, that is my top 10 most favorited films of 2025. Once again, your list is going to be completely different than mine. I definitely understand that. But as always, in the comments below, what is your favorite movie of 2025? What is your favorite film list? If you have a top 10, let me know what it is. But with that said, that'll do it. I do appreciate it. Look forward to my most disappointing list, which will come at the end of the year, as well as my most anticipated list, which will come at the beginning of the year. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. With that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.